Okay, we're back. Moderation helps everyone feel safe, so there are comments this time. We are figuring everything out slowly and surely. All right. We are officially live this time. Welcome to the live chat. That makes me think that there is actual chat. Okay, we'll give people a second to get back in here. Again, when it's early like this, we appreciate you guys for sticking around through the technical difficulties. This is my first time doing anything live on YouTube, so really appreciate you guys bearing with our technical difficulties, although we lost all 3 of our viewers. So
they're all switching over. See, they're texting me. Clint's shoulders said, "All good with the shoulder, thanks." So we are getting comments, and then Stephanie wrote,
"Hey,
also,
we're back."
We're back up with comments, is what I wrote.
Yes.
But she wrote like comments and nothing.
Welcome back to our one viewer. Oh, there's a comment there.
So
Comments turned on now. Stephanie.
Now I should be able to see them too.
Okay. Yeah.
We're figuring this out.
We are
getting
it
there.
out. So it's just Stephanie right now. Hopefully people will figure it out soon. I wonder. I'm gonna pause real quick and go share it in all the Facebook groups. You should be able to hear us, although my clock's not running anymore. That's weird. Okay, we're back. We're back. We're figuring it out.
This is great.
Sweet. Hopefully more people will show up. Sweet. Hopefully more people will show up. Give people maybe a minute or two to get trickling back in. I gotta remember that one viewer on here is you.
I just popped in, so it might say 2 now. But
Nope, it still says 1.
all right, comments on now from Stephanie.
Sweet.
No, I don't want to report.
Get her out of here. Okay, there is 2. There's 2. Yeah, one of them's you though. It's fine. All right.
Clint's back here.
Sweet. So I was talking about.
Clint's on TV, so he can't comment.
That's fine, Clint. Jay Shield commented.
Yeah, no, I'll take care of that stuff for you.
All right. We were talking about pool sessions. So coming up, we have 2 pool sessions. We've got Lebanon and Xavier. Lebanon is run by George Davis. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to him. His stuff is on the Ohio Kayak Construction page. So if you have any questions for him, go ahead and email him. For Xavier, the dates are January 1st, January 11th, January 18th, February 1st, and February 15th. And those will be from 6:30 to 8 p.m. It's a bunch of different Sundays through the year. And you have to be a keel hauler, which is a $20 membership for the whole year. They're a great club. They put on a lot of trips. So if you're not a keel hauler, I highly recommend it. And they are also instrumental in us being able to rent Xavier's pool because they provide the liability insurance to me for no cost, just you guys being memberships. So please join, please be a member. It's really, really great. And then the session cost will be $15. For adults, I typically have not charged for kids in the past. I had a question about that at pool sessions. And then there's a bulk price of $55 for all 4 sessions. I'm considering doing hour-long private lessons, so if you have any interest in that, go ahead and send me a message. If not, no big deal. I get to play around in a pool for an hour and a half. Like I said, January 9th is the next Ohio Kayak Construction pool session. We don't actually know where that's going to be located at, so when we have information, we will send that to you. And coming up on January 24th through the 1st, that's not right. January 24th through the 31st
Yes.
is the Pucon kayak trip.
Pucon
Kayak trip. Jeremy's going on that. I think it sounds like an awesome time. Can you tell us a little
we've
bit
got a
more
good
about it?
group. There's, I think 9 of us registered now, headed down that span beginner to advanced. So we will have a great group at base camp, all go do different rivers each day. There is one day we all do the same river, this is the San Pedro, and it's just a lot of big wave fun and a good time, and everybody paddles together, so it'll be a blast. But I haven't been down there for over 10 years, and when I was there it was still called Pucon Kayak Retreat, Hostel, and I actually saw the very beginning skeletons of some of these structures that look like they're down here, and David has done an unreal job just growing the place, especially through the COVID years. So I'm stoked to get back down there and see it again. Not only that, of course, get on the water and the runs down there, which are just awesome. It's such a beautiful place to be. So if you have any interest in it, it really is all the way, like David said when he was on a month ago or so now, even as a complete beginner kayaker, if you have the time to head down, it is one of the best places to learn to even roll. I mean, it's done in a volcanic lake, it's 85 degrees, it's super comfortable, and there's a plethora of wonderful introductory runs right there within 20 minutes of where you're staying. So if there's any interest at all, contact Eric or myself. I'll be leading the trip down there. And we're gonna have a blast, so definitely get in touch if you have any interest. It's really shaped up to be a good group.
And the way that rebate works, because it's not a discount, it's a rebate, the more people that sign up using Eric's code, the more money you guys will get back from Pucon Kayak Retreat. So if you get your friends to go, it'll make it cheaper for everybody. So if you're on the fence, go ahead and do it. I'm really jealous that I have to be a teacher in school and won't be there. Maybe next year, but we'll find out. So if you're on the fence, you should do it.
There already are 2 people for next year. So it's apparently it's going to become an annual thing, which is awesome because that gives me an excuse to go every year.
All right, so I think we've got a couple people in here. So go ahead, leave comments. This is on Eric's page, so it boosts his promotion, which gets us out there and makes our life a little bit easier. Eric and I were at Golly Fest this year and we were getting recognized, so that was awesome. So if you ever see any of us in public, say hi. We're pretty natural guys. We wear our Ohio Kayak Construction hat a lot. But if you like and comment, this gets it out there to more people who are interested in paddling and helps us grow our community and grow our sport. So moving into our questions. We had 3 different questions today. The first one was from Mark Leone, and it was, he had trouble using muscle memory in his rolling. He was had a pretty solid 75% of the time sweep roll, and in Eric's class we were working on C2C rolls, and now he can't seem to hit either of them. So he's wondering if he should stick to his sweep or stick to the C2C after now struggling with both. So I'll let you go ahead and answer that one first.
So from a muscle memory standpoint, I absolutely believe you should stick with the roll you're having the most success with and get that roll dialed in all the way to 100% to where you have no doubt in it whatsoever. And then if you still want to learn the opposite roll, or not opposite side, sorry, the C2C versus the sweep, or perform it technically properly, it's worth your time to do so. It just gives you a little bit better understanding of the roll and how to roll in different positions. But muscle memory is huge in kayaking and all aspects of it, and definitely including the roll. So whatever you're doing that's successful and working for you, you should continue that path until you feel extraordinarily comfortable with it, I think, before you start confusing yourself by going to a different method of it. Part of the reason it is taught that way in the class series is because any given class we have a mixture of people, and you don't really know till you try both methods, and those are the most commonly taught 2 methods for learning the roll, at least that I've encountered. And there are 2 different ways of breaking it down, and they click for some people and not for others. So until we actually show them both to you, it's it's really hard for us to determine up front, hey, this one's gonna be better for you, or you will have more success this way, because some people are polar opposites for it. They swear by one or the other, and in the end, most people end up with a hybrid, like we've talked about before, where you're not performing either a sweep or a C to C technically correct according to the guides out there, but you are performing a roll that gets you up 99.99% of the time, and that's what you ultimately are going for, is a bomb-proof roll. And so whatever your roll is, it's not worth stressing over the technicalities of it and getting inside your head, because I can very much personally attest to having massive head problems myself, especially early in my paddling career, and it would take just one blown roll to send my mind into this analytical spin, like quite literally drawing out free body diagrams in my head as to where my body should be, instead of just feeling where my body was and feeling the water on my paddle, or my hands for that matter, and head down, hip snap up. But Mark's question is a really good one, and it brings back why we teach both methods, but why you should, in my opinion, stick to one or the other, whichever is working the best while you are getting set up, particularly with your very first roll. And after that, 100% go learn every roll there is, and definitely learn a back deck roll, because you can sweep up from a reverse sweep, and it often is a position you're knocked over when you get just absolutely smashed by a wave. So it's a lot quicker to roll up that way. So once you have one mastered, then go learn the others. But there's no reason to confuse yourself if you have one dialed in at 70% and the other is just confusing. Don't let it negatively affect you. Just scrap it for now. Plenty of time.
Absolutely. He said everything pretty much I was going to say, is that do whatever you feel the most comfortable with. The reason we teach both is because one roll works for another person and it might not work for you. You've all probably heard Eric's bias that he thinks the CDC is a much stronger roll, and I would tend to agree with him. But if a sweep roll works to get you up and you feel comfortable in it, and then that's what works for you. Mark, like we were talking about at last Friday's pool class, is my roll is really more sweep-ish than C-to-C-ish, but it's a blend of both, and it's just comes with experience. You get used to it, but for right now, just learning, stick with your sweep, stick to what you know, what's working for you, and then really refine that. And then what you develop there is getting a really, really strong hip snap, and that's going to make learning the other rules easier.
And so, to that point, we've got a question from Stephanie, which is, do you recommend learning a back deck roll? Some instructors don't teach or recommend due to concerns about potential shoulder injury and the exposure of the face. So that's a great question. It brings up a couple awesome points that get talked about a lot, and there's a lot of controversy over, and you will get different answers from different people. So keep that in mind. But my belief is absolutely learn the back deck roll, and I just mentioned it a bit ago, but once you have your first roll down, it's worth experimenting with and learning all the other rolls you can, because when you find yourself upside down, the more options you have, the better. And at that point in your progression, you will feel that you have enough support on your hands or paddle to hip snap up, regardless of where your paddle is. It can be all kinds of crazy places and you can still roll up. So as far as the back deck roll goes, it is great for learning how to roll when you get knocked backwards by a wave, particularly if you're still leaning back when you're hitting larger features like a hole or a big solid wave in front of you, and it actually throws you back so your boat falls over your head. A lot of times your paddle, I'm trying to see if I'm in frame, but you'll be back here over your back shoulder already. So the time it takes you to go back to set up, either C to C or sweep, is 1 to 3 seconds at least to get your paddle back to set up and perform the maneuver. Whereas you're already in this position, you can just reverse sweep forward and hip snap up at 90 degrees, which is a back deck roll. It's the end of a back deck roll. So by learning a back deck roll, Stephanie, it teaches you how to do the reverse sweep rolls and how to roll from a very different position than you roll in for sweeps or C to C rolls. So I'm a big advocate of learning how to do it. The shoulder question of it, and I speak from experience, It didn't happen during a back deck roll. It happened at Frankenstein on the green, but I destroyed. Actually, it's this shoulder. I'm looking at the camera, my right shoulder, but it was mostly just too many hits over too many years of paddling that let it dislocate so badly that it actually broke the top of my humerus. So you don't want to mess your shoulders up, and that's where you want to stay in the paddler's box. There's a video, and it is of me. Eric was in the tree above me, so he's looking down at me as I roll, as I do a back deck roll. And Mike actually commented on it, that one thing about it that he liked is that you can see that my shoulders stay perfectly in the paddler's box, which is, you know, when we first start kayaking, the box we define between our elbows and forearms and wrists and everything else. And the main idea behind the paddler's box is to protect your shoulders. So when you're doing a proper back deck roll, your shoulders don't get out of the paddler's box if you're doing it correctly. What people tend to do and why it does cause shoulder injuries, and I know at least one person myself who did injure their shoulder trying to learn a back deck roll, is people stick their arms straight up and then spin, and that's not where you want your arms. You want your arms rotating at your trunk and barely angled up. It's not a over your head roll. So that's where you can get into shoulder trouble with it. And to the final point, which is another great one, it exposes your face. Well, back to my first counterpoint or argument for the back deck roll is when you're knocked over, say this way, your face is already exposed, and the time you're trying to get yourself back to set up to do a regular roll, if you know how to do a back deck roll, you only do a quarter of that motion and you've rolled up right. So your total duration underwater with your face exposed is a quarter of what it would be still exposed, not necessarily face first. But I also, for better or worse, have been hit by a lot of underwater objects while being rolled. And if you're wearing a good helmet, which you absolutely have to be if you're doing real whitewater, it will protect you. And I don't wear a full face mask, and I have taken a couple shots under the helmet. Last year I got one on and I rolled very quick, but I still got stabbed in the forehead by a rock, and it was no big deal. But it's I think worth knowing how to do, and particularly learning how to do it in a pool. That way you have that skill should you need it on the river. If you find yourself in a position that you know you can roll from, just go ahead and roll. And that way you're upright quicker, and that protects every part of your body that's underwater while you're setting up. So I think it's a 50-50 split as far as your head being underwater, leaning towards knowing how to do a back deck roll for the sake of getting up quicker is my answer to that.
Yeah, I think it is the fastest roll available most often, especially when you're on bigger stuff. The way you flip is not by window shading often, it's getting launched up on your back. So like Jeremy said, you're already going to be there. My other point for the face is because I have also hit my face on a few rocks and it sucks. Just know the river you're on, you know the spot that you're at. I only do back deck rolls kind of religiously when I play boat, and that's just because they're faster and there's more chance to stay in the hole. But I also don't do it in anything particularly shallow because I know most of my play spots, I know that I can at least put my face down there and not hit a rock because
the pillow's usually got enough depth to let you do it.
It's definitely an unpleasant experience when you hit your face, but I don't have very many scars from rocks on my face or anywhere in my body for that matter.
You'll get there.
But yeah, that's my thing about when learning it is definitely a valuable tool. Like I said, I think most often in actual combat situations, it's the fastest roll, and it definitely will come in handy in a handful of situations on the river.
It does.
Great question. Good job, Stephanie, leaving comments. I'm so proud of you. This next question is the low brace versus the high brace.
All right.
I'll let you go for that one too.
I mean, and I might as well just grab a paddle. But in its simplest form, a low brace is your elbows are down, your wrists down, and you're using you're not using your power face of your paddle, you're using the backside of your paddle to brace. In a high brace, your elbows are bent up, you're out to the side, and you're using the power face of your paddle to brace. The high brace puts your shoulders, since we're talking about shoulders, under much more load than the low brace does. At the same time, the low brace, if I'm sitting in a kayak now and I've got my elbows bent down, well, they're already closer to the water, and so is the paddle face. In fact, it's usually only a couple inches oftentimes. So your low brace can give you plenty of support, and it's a great thing to learn how to do. I learned the low brace basically through front surfing, because it's a rudder stroke when you're surfing. Yeah, like what Ed's doing. You want to paddle? No. But it's I've low braced off things unexpectedly just out of instinct, out of muscle memory, to tie it all the way back to, who was it, Jim or?
That was Mark.
That was Mark.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark. But to Mark's comment about muscle memory, all the different skills you learn as you progress through your paddling career, you'll find yourself doing them when you're not thinking at all, and you're like, I don't know how I stayed upright. And you know, sometimes one of the benefits of having GoPros and stuff, which I only wore once this year, but I'm still putting that video together, and we'll get it out to everybody, Ed and Clint. And you're in it a bunch, actually. But the GoPro footage of yourself, you can often watch something back and it's like, how did I stay upright? I thought I was going to get it absolutely worked. And you'll notice you did something like threw a low brace when normally you never really think about throwing a low brace, because by the time, a lot of times people don't think about bracing really, they kind of forget it. I think the brace gets often, both of them get lost between the roll and just staying upright. And really, if you brace well, you won't have to roll near as much by a lot. I mean, bracing is a critically important skill, and many times, if you've paddled with me, you'll see a lot of times I skull, which is where you rotate your wrist back and forward, and my boat's sideways when I'm doing that. And part of the reason I do that so much is, one, it's just kind of fun and goofy to do, but two, it gives you a lot of edge control and just time spent on your edges. And a sculling stroke is also a brace. It's called a sculling brace if you do it that way, but it's just different types of, they are high braces technically, the way your wrists are and your elbows, but it's a different way of keeping your boat from, you can flip it all the way over and flip it back over if you want. If your paddle's still up near the surface, you'll be golden. So low brace is wrist down, fist down, up is high brace. And whichever one you're doing, try on a high brace, which you'll do more often, try not to get your shoulder way up there. Try to keep your elbows bent and move with your core, keeping yourself in the box, whatever you're doing. But once you get above 90 degrees with either of your shoulders, that's when your shoulders are under a lot of stress and a lot of load, because it's a big cantilever beam. So any load applied out at this tip, multiply that by the length of your arm, and that's the force being applied, which is often more than your AC joint can take.
Yeah, I think best way to learn a low brace is, like he was talking about, is just rudder surfing. I think that there's a misconception that really good boaters don't roll a lot because they're really good. They really don't roll a lot because, one, they are good, but they also have really, really good braces. Like if you watch really good paddlers, more often than not, they are high bracing or low bracing through waves and through stuff that they know might flip them. So if you get really good at bracing, you're gonna flip a lot less.
Hey, and Creek, excellent point through in the comments. He's a huge fan of low brace, and way to go for that. But when you lean forward when you're finishing a roll, a low brace can help, especially if you have a slower or a mistimed hip snap. The low brace will give you that extra couple tenths of a second that you need of support to get you up if you carry a low brace forward, and also can help if you want to finish over the bow of your boat with a roll, which is another different way of rolling as well.
Yep. Next question is, how to do a hand of God. So I know many rescues that are called a hand of God.
Boat.
The one that is most common, I think, that this person is asking about is the hand of God that you can do when you're a complete newbie, and the instructors are really good that they can grab the boat.
So, do you want me to sit in the boat? It'll be hard, but actually the boat will be upside down.
So if the boat, oh, this thing's sturdy.
Beth had it last, so
If you're
I
a
don't have a foot
rescuer
block.
in a boat, and your victim is upside down in the boat, what the rescuer does, the rescuee is upside down in the boat. What the rescuer does is they reach over to the one far side of the boat, and while they're pulling with their arm that's over the boat, so in this instant it's my right, they're pushing down with their left arm, and then in a river or a pool where there's buoyancy, it kind of just pulls a lever, and it's an easy way to get someone up if all else fails. It's very hard to do kayak to kayak, especially like this, because you got to be really long and also very comfortable in your boat.
So when you're in your boat, trying to do a hand of God, you are going to be all the way over like this, literally leaning over their boat to grab their cockpit coaming.
Yep.
And fall back over with it and use your momentum along with their buoyancy and counter buoyancy to cause their boat to come upright. Hand to God obviously is tricky to do in a rapid still, so it's a really useful thing for everybody should learn to do it. And there's times in particular when, God forbid, but you have an unconscious paddler upside down in their boat. And you won't know that initially because they're upside down. You can't see them, and they're in a rapid. You obviously get flipped over and knocked out. And what happens is you realize all of a sudden, oh my God, they're not even trying to roll, and they're not trying to wet exit. And you need to get that boat upright to get them out of the rapid safely. And the hand of God is the only option there besides getting out and pulling their skirt with them. But now you got a swimmer that's unconscious, which is not ideal.
So I'll put that back.
Yeah.
I have successfully done a hand of God one time in Middle Keeney of all places.
What? No way.
At the very bottom in the run out of Middle Keeney. And it was not a true hand of God like that. This guy was doing a roll attempt and he was not getting it. It was very clear that he was not getting it, so I grabbed his stern, the back of his cockpit, and pulled him up. So that's another hand of God type move.
Yeah, actually that's...
This guy had carved like 6 rolls, so that I would say is much more common of something to happen in a rolling environment.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is not completely righting the boat for them, but giving them that extra little oomph
to get them up. Yeah. I actually have seen that a lot more.
Yeah. So that's what the people I grew up paddling with used to call a hand of God. It was not that whole big maneuver. But I have
riding them.
definitely done that my fair share of times since I've started working with Eric.
If you happen to feel yourself being hand of Godded for some reason in a rapid, lean into your deck.
Yes.
Because if you're upright, it becomes very hard to get you up due to toppling.
Yep. So those were all our questions. Is there anything else in the comments? Doesn't look like it. Okay. All right.
So we have scary stories.
Yes, this is our Halloween episode, so to speak, because Friday is Halloween. So we are going to go through and we're going to talk about scary swims and recovering from scary swims and injuries
and just dealing with fear.
Dealing with fear in general. So I guess I'll start with my scariest swim. This is not a...
Kristen says boo.
This is a pretty lame, scariest swim, and that kind of just shows you that I'm very lucky when it has come to my paddling career that I have not been in a lot of situations that I've been scared. I'm gonna go knock on wood right now because I don't want to.
That's real wood.
I don't want to start knowing that it's gonna happen this winter now, and I'm gonna freeze to death.
That'll be in
My scariest swim happened to me when I was maybe 10 years old on the Tellico section, the ice cream section of the Tellico. If you've ever been to the Tellico, the ice cream section is riffles. In my defense, the river was at flood stage, and it was my first time on chocolate brown water, but that was really throwing me for a loop. I did not want to get on at all. My parents, who I love and appreciate for making me kayak, they said, "You'll be fine." I flipped over and immediately pulled my skirt, and I think I was in the water for a grand total of 10 seconds before they had got me to shore. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back that day. I would not get back on the river. My mom had to walk down the road, the Tellico Road, with me. She was very happy about that, I'm sure. And
she's awesome. She thinks
the next day, we were on the Nantahala, which was not at flood stage, and it was something that I had done probably close to 10 times at that point, and I took off after like 4 miles, and when you come up to that first little picnic area.
Okay.
And that was the last time that I boated for 2 years, maybe 3 or 4. I took a long break. I got out of it. I was not having fun.
You just eddied out of the picnic area?
Yeah, I eddied out and hopped out.
Like, I'm
and
decent out.
my dad and I hitchhiked to the NOC. And that was my last time in a boat for 3 years. When I got back in, we were rafting on the Castleman River, which my dad and I were R2ing, and
Where's that at?
It's by the Lower Yock.
Okay.
So if the Lower Yock is too high, the Castleman is probably in.
Yeah, no, I don't even know that wrong.
It's a lot of fun. It's a good beginner-ish run. But my dad and I were R2ing, and my 2 older brothers were kayaking it. It's short enough that you can lap it. And when we took off and got to the takeout, I said, "Dad, I think I can kayak that." And he was like, "Absolutely, we can do another lap."
Yes.
So we
That's awesome.
switched boats into my brother's boats and with my brother's gear. And from then on, I've had the bug and not really been super duper scared on a river.
That's awesome though, and I mean, I've always said, because I did not start hard boating until I was in college, and I was like, I wish I had started this as a kid. I played soccer a ton and pretty much did nothing else. If I had spent some of that time, well, not nothing else, I spent a lot of time rafting, but I always wanted to kayak, and we were always in West Virginia rafting. We'd go at least, 4 to 6 times a year. My dad was real big into it, and my mom always came along with us on all our various different adventures over the years. But so if I wasn't one of the weekends we were rafting, I was playing soccer, and I would always wished I had devoted some of that time to kayaking at a younger age. But of course, being from Ohio, and we didn't have our own raft either. It was our friend's shared raft between my dad and other friends of his or whatever. And so it was something, getting a kayak was not possible for me, especially in the mid 90s. So never got a chance until I was hanging out with friends who were raft guides at the Ocoee when I was at Tennessee. That's why the Ocoee was the first river I went on and swam the almost entirety of it, but I did make it through Grumpy's, which is good if you're going to make it through one of the rapids. That one's not fun. Broken Nose still sucked. But yeah, it's I think being 10 years old and having it doesn't really matter the rating of the river. Like, I remember being 10, I was 12 when I got a class 3 hang gliding license, which the checkout test involved taking. I realize this isn't kayaking, but this is kind of just touching on the subject of fear and the fear of when you're a child approaching things versus an adult, or even a couple years later as a child when you realize hey, I actually am not scared of this. I want to do this, and you feel a drive to do that. And that's a lot of time is the tipping point between fear and fun with a lot of these activities that we do. Because as any of you who paddle know, I'm sure your coworkers and other friends who do not paddle or do rafting or whitewater of any sort are like, why? That doesn't sound fun to me. I hear that a lot. It's to each their own, obviously, but there is always an element of fear to a lot of these quote unquote extreme sports, but where you're out in nature in an uncontrolled environment, and things can happen with very little to no warning. So, and it can give you fear at something you've been comfortable doing for years, and it can also be something you're brand new at, that approaching it just seems daunting. And the idea of going on some of the runs you see videos of other people doing and stuff just literally makes you fearful watching them on TV. I was that way once upon a time, or watching them on YouTube rather, but it's cool that he got to learn as a 10-year-old. Like, that would be amazing. But I remember I was on the back of a pickup truck with 2,000 feet of wire taking off on the beach by Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, from the back of literally some dude's truck, going up 2,000 feet in the air on a giant kite. And then they cut the pin loose, or I cut the pin loose, but still. I was literally in tears. I was 12 on the way up, and I had a radio. So my dad's on the other side of the radio, and I'm still getting like, you better stop crying. This is nothing to cry about. You're having fun. And I'm like, oh, am I really?
Yeah.
But it was kind of funny. About 10 seconds after we pulled the pin, and I'm no longer connected to anything, and I'm floating 2,000 feet above the air on my own, and there was instant calm, and it was a blast. And the same thing has happened to me multiple times with kayaking. I've had a couple very bad swims, and while none of them caused me to come away from the sport, they definitely led to elements of fear. One of them was actually on the Little Miami River, of all places. And the reason I bring it up is because we all spend so much time out there. But one of the two most dangerous swims I've ever had was on the Little Miami River at flood stage in February. It was in the upper 20 degrees air temperature, and the water had ice in it, and it was the dead of winter. But I had just got my very first new boat, which was a Burn 1. And as I was coming down the river, I didn't even hear it because it just, I wasn't paying attention. I had a helmet on. It was freezing cold, so I had headgear on under my helmet too. But a tree fell in my boat, a large tree. And luckily it didn't hit me. I was also, important to mention, completely alone at a point in my career where there's always a lot of consideration to put into something before you paddle it alone. I fully admit I paddle Little Miami alone a lot, and have for a long time, but not necessarily at flood conditions all the time or anything like that. I do it for workouts all the time, but there's a lot of consideration needed when you're paddling alone. Luckily, I had done one thing right that day, which was I dressed for the water and the air temperature for that matter, because this was winter. And while I did not have a dry suit, I did have a 3mm wetsuit on Farmer John with a fleece top and then a dry top on top of that. So regardless, my boat got trapped underneath this tree that fell down, so there was no rolling at all. I tried it and my boat literally wouldn't move. I didn't know what happened yet. I felt the impact, but I had no idea what was going on. And I also knew I didn't want to pull my skirt, but I was running out of air quick because of the temperature. So I pulled, and this is literally the same day I picked this boat up, so I didn't want to lose it, which is a stupid thing to keep in mind when you're in a bad situation all of a sudden and you have no one around to help you with. And so again, this is at flood stage. It's probably every bit of 6,000 CFS. It took me over a mile, probably about a mile and a half past where my truck was at the takeout. by the time I was able to get to shore, because shore was flooded. So the last part of it was swimming through the woods. And by that point, my arms below my elbows were completely numb. I was definitely hypothermic already at that point. My legs below the knees were completely numb. My toes and fingers, I could not move at all. I'm still pushing my boat, still pushing my paddle, and I got it all to shore. I would rest by just letting myself get wrapped on a tree with my head up above the water, because the current wasn't very much. Once you got into the forest, the trees were working as they're creating eddies. So I'd get in an eddy where it was pushing me against a tree gently, and I just sit there for like minutes because I was frozen and couldn't do anything. And then I'd lunge my boat with like my forearms towards another group of trees, get it stuck, and then somehow swim over to it, and repeated that till I got to shore. I was so exhausted. I was probably in the water for over a half an hour at that point, and I was so numb that when I got to shore, my legs were still in the water from like my shins down, and not only could I not feel it, I was so exhausted I didn't even care, and I sat there for another 5 minutes probably, again, completely by myself. I've got a mile and a half to get back to a vehicle. At this point, I'm determined to bring my boat since I got it with me to shore. So I did realize the severity of the situation while I was sitting there, that it was like actually at the point of like, this not only could be harmful, this could be fatal. I have hypothermia, I need to move. And I couldn't even feel my legs or hands or arms or anything else. So I did have a throw rope with me because it was strapped in my boat already. And I lassoed it around my waist and just pulled it like an ox till I got back to my truck. And when I got to the truck, I didn't change or anything. I got in the truck, turned the heater on. I managed to get the boat in the back of the truck. It took me 20 minutes of waiting in the truck to get enough dexterity to be able to drive with just my wrists. And I was able to get home. And I had two roommates at the time, Tim Keat and Chris Rollman. And I walk in, and they look at me like, what just happened to you? And I'm no idea what I look like, but my lips were blue, all the good stuff. I wasn't shivering though, which is an interesting thing to note about hypothermia. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you're worried about the onset of hypothermia, you won't be shivering or chattering. And the later state, not even the later, in moderate hypothermia, you will stop shivering because your body's trying to conserve every ounce of warmth it can, and it's wasted on shivering at that point. Shivering is your body's attempt to prevent the onset of hypothermia. So long story short, by the time I got back home, they were watching a Bengals game or whatever game was on. Maybe it was college football, I don't remember. You do not want to rewarm yourself rapidly with hot water with hypothermia. It risks blowing up a lot of the small vascular constructions that are in your top layers of your skin and even deeper, and it can cause permanent damage and numbness. So if you do find yourself hypothermic, luckily I did know all this stuff. I have been through wilderness first aid courses. I used to be a rescue scuba diver. I've got a variety of medical influence in my life over the years, in particular focused on either combat style treating or other outdoors stuff. So I knew how to treat hypothermia, and I was able to rewarm gradually over time. And the last thing that really mentioned about it that's at this point interesting to me, but is I think it was probably 45 minutes after rewarming gradually in sweats, dry, multiple blankets on me, just regular house heat, watching a football game with these two, I started shivering so hard that I literally thought I was gonna pull every muscle in my body, and it continued for like 10 minutes. And it also was one of the best workouts ever. Probably I wish watches were a thing, then I would have gotten like 1,000,000 calories burned or steps or whatever, because it looked like they thought I was having a seizure, which is a possibility too. So it's kind of freaky, but no, I was quite literally shivering that hard, and I was not seizing. So when your body rewarms back up to a temperature where it thinks it has enough heat to burn, it'll try and warm you up by shivering again. So you shiver on the way back up, which is a pretty spooky experience. So, point of all that being, it was a river I wasn't concerned about. It was a brand new boat day. I was just out for a quick paddle before going out that night on a Saturday in my 20s and late 20s at that point, but still. And the last thing on my mind when I put on was that I would have hypothermia and be recovering from hypothermia, luckily for free at home, but that could have gone worse. I mean, I could have got hit by a tree too, but both of those are scary things to think about, and it's a good reason not to paddle alone. Definitely don't paddle alone when you're inexperienced in flood conditions. Like, I had experience, and there wasn't much I could do, but it would have been a better idea not to boat that day is the right choice. I should have just gone home.
Yeah. So that makes my scary story seem a lot more tame. I guess that kind of leads me to something important here, is that it's been raining a lot, so the ground is definitely saturated to the point where if we get a couple, an inch or two of real hard rain for just a little bit, rivers will be in. The water will be cold, so if you are wondering or feeling like you want to go out there, dress warm. If you don't have a dry top or a paddling jacket or a wetsuit, maybe consider staying at home.
Or call people.
And ask to borrow stuff. It's going to be cold, and like Jeremy said, you should dress for the swim and not for the air temperature. I know it's been relatively cold compared to what it's been this summer and fall so far, but
it's like 80 degrees last week.
even if it gets back up to 80 degrees, the water will still be cold. It'll still be very, very cold and very shocking to roll upside down in. So dress for the water, be smart. Jeremy likes to paddle alone. I don't really. It gives me kind of the heebies. Even on easy stuff, I try never to do it alone.
It's a good choice to make.
And it's because it's just a sign, that even no matter how good you are or how familiar you are with the river, anything can happen. And you just never really know what might happen. So dealing with fear, this is something that Jeremy and I have talked about quite a bit. It's kayaking. You get what you want to get out of kayaking. For some people, that's doing class 1. Like one of my favorite things about kayaking is the views you can get from a kayak seat. That you can't really get any other way.
Yeah.
And you can get those views in class 1 stuff, right? So you gotta go to the point where you're comfortable. If you at any point feel uncomfortable, there's other ways around, right? Like if you're on a river and you're like, I'm not having it, there's a lot of great rivers that are step-up rivers that are roadside, like the Ocoee. The lower Yacht, there's a trail all along. There's ways to get out. The Nantahala roadside.
The Nantahala is great. The
And-
Tuckasegee is great. The Cartacay is great. And those are actually warmer ones. They're in southern North Carolina, northern Georgia is where those are. Southern North Carolina.
But I think that there's this big question is like, I'm always afraid when I paddle, then maybe you're doing a bit more than you want to do. I guess there is a mindset, especially around guys my age, that even if you are scared,
I remember
rip
that.
the Band-Aid off and then you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But
Sieves are hard to get out of.
my parents always described to us, well, when I was getting back into it, when I was a bit older, when I was stepping up, they said we grew up in a sport that is inherently dangerous, thinking that it is not.
That's incredibly good advice.
So me and my brothers, we grew up with a very, very experienced, hand-selected crew of paddlers that my parents have been paddling with for 20 years at that point. And they were all very capable and handy paddlers that knew what they were doing in any event. So they were prepared for any emergency that we found on the river. And not saying that we really got into a lot of emergencies, but there was never a situation where I was concerned about the people that were leading me down or with me on the river. And that creates kind of this natural feeling of safety, and I think that a lot of people that are getting into it, you know, you get a bomb-proof roll, you can do anything. That's not really the case. You gotta be able to.
Humility and introspection and being brutally honest with yourself is critically important to avoid situations where you'll find yourself in a constant state of fear.
Yes. So my advice for the fear would be stay where you're comfortable. Like, and if you are like, well, maybe it's time to move on, it's like, well, ask yourself, can I do everything that there is to do on this river? Because even on easy rivers, there are hard moves.
And also ask yourself, what's your motivation? Like, does it seem fun to you to go do something bigger? If so, that's a good reason to do so. If it's, hey, I want to be where these other people are because I thought I'd be there already, or my friends are already paddling that, or I should be paddling that by now, but you're not sure you can paddle it yet, or you, even worse, and I've been guilty of this, you know you can't or shouldn't be yet, and if you get through, it's going to be, you know, you're relying on some percentage of luck to even get through the run, or if you're worried about flipping over, for example, in a certain rapid, thinking that you can't roll up, you're probably A, not going to roll up because you're going to be so tense when you try, it's going to fight you. But B, it's just not a fun way to experience a river, and when you expose yourself to that prematurely, I think it lines you up a lot for becoming fearful regularly when paddling. And unfortunately, that can drive people away from the sport. And it's sad to see people go because they become fearful of it. And there's certainly every justification for it. But it's just a shame that sometimes it is. I've seen people selling gear speaking of the Akoi, I've seen people selling gear at the put-in of the Akoi because they just watched YouTube videos on how to whitewater kayak, went and bought all the multiple thousands of dollars worth of gear that you need, decided that the Nantahala based, again, on YouTube videos, or some even looked in person, and were like, nah, we're not beginners, we're like all-state, you know, in football. And it's like, that's great, you're a good athlete. It just isn't translatable to kayaking. It's not gonna happen. And those same people, I've seen them and have some of the gear I have is stuff I've bought from people in the parking lot for like 50 bucks for, you know, a brand new like dry top or helmet. Paddle for $80, that was a $600 paddle. And they were glad. They're like, you don't even understand, bro, I just almost died. And it's like, all right, A, I do, because it's almost happened to me, and I've actually been thrashed in the same rapid you got thrashed in plenty of times, but you did almost die, and that was super stupid. Like, you should not have approached the sport that way, and those people obviously are not going to come back to it, and they're out, but it's because they put themselves in way over their head and realized all of a sudden this is very real, as I'm sure everyone watching this that's paddled at some point or another has ended up out of their boat in a rapid like, this ain't good. And a lot of times that can be a very scary experience that takes some time to get over, and it also, you can get injured easily. Swim, you know, is couple things. A, it's nothing to stress over unless it is, and that comes with where you're paddling. A lot of times the worst is going to happen in a swim on well-known, often paddled runs is you're just going to maybe suck in a little bit of water as you go through a hole or something. And that's great. That's when it's safe and helps you learn an important skill, but a swim is a rescue. By definition, when you are swimming, when you're out of your boat, it is now a rescue situation, and learning to swim in white water and self-rescuing by swimming to safety yourself is probably one of the most critical skills besides wet exit to know once you start doing this, because it is no fun to be in the middle of a rapid, particularly a long one, and find yourself out of the boat, unsure of where to go, and that leads me just to a second story I'll tell where I got absolutely worked so hard it ripped the cartilage off my ribs, and it was when I was boating really well, and it involves the person who just texted me that I just noticed. And actually, you pointed something else out earlier that I'll revisit. But one of my best friends all time, I've known him since high school. He lives down in Fayetteville. Clint Trentman is watching. He's not logged in, so he can't comment. So I'm getting this by text. But what I'm leading into, Clint wasn't there that day. I'm not sure why. Tom Monick was, for those of you who know him. And Clint, your comment about fear is right on, and I'll definitely repeat it right after I explain why I got scared of New River Dries. So Tom and I had gone down to Fayetteville, and Clint lives down in Fayetteville now, which is great. And we had gone down initially to paddle the lower New was the plan, but we really hadn't checked the weather reports much. This was earlier on in my boating career too, so we were thinking the New might be a little big at around 6 feet. Well, the New was at plus 22.5 feet or so when we got there. We were actually on the way when we got a phone call from a friend of Tom's who lived in North Carolina, which if you didn't know, the New River actually does start in North Carolina and runs north. And so it's, he had mentioned that it was pouring down rain in that general area and it was coming. And so, yeah, long story short, the New ended up at plus 24 feet by Saturday morning when we were planning to put on. So Tom decided that I was ready, and I was earlier on, but I was boating well at the time, and this was in a play boat. It was in that orange boat we were using for the Hand of God thing. And the first run down was with Tom and several other paddlers that I at least tangentially knew, but there were other Fayetteville locals and one guy we met on the road, or at the put-in, and everybody was in play boats. We all paddled well, had great run, no big deal, took out a takeout, no swims, everything was fine. I'm thrilled, I'm on top of the world. I just ran the New River Dries, which if you don't know is big water, giant waves, great surf, but it's also got serious rapids on it, and it is, you know, class 5 minus at least, and at high water is absolutely class 5 plus and can cause a lot of mayhem or worse. But one of the rapids on there is called Mile Long, and it's infamously got 2 gargantuan holes in it that are not hard to go between. But when you look at them, I mean, they're every bit the size of this garage in terms of height. And I knew where they were. I knew they were coming up. But on the second run, Tom, who helped teach me to paddle along with Clint and several other people, Tom left to go run the New proper at plus 24 feet with a group of people that were at the put-in, and left me with a new group of people at the put-in that just showed up that were all in creek boats. And Tom knew one of them. I had just met him that day. I cannot remember his name. He was an awesome dude, and I still carry around a rock that I'll explain why that he gave me later that day. So anyway, long story long at this point, I go down the second run of the day. I'm extremely confident I'm on top of the world. I'm leading the group. I'm surfing in my play boat while the creek boats are going by and paddling very conservatively. And it is, you know, big water or whatever. And we get halfway through Mile Long and come up on the 2 holes. I know where we are. I know exactly where we are. One girl scoots in front of me, and I forget that her boat is a good 4 feet longer than my play boat. It's sunny, it's a beautiful West Virginia day, blue skies, this huge canyon wall on the right side of the river, and it's sunlight reflecting everywhere. It's just, I'm like, this is great. And then I feel the back pull of the hole on the right that I came just 1 paddle stroke from escaping probably. And I feel it accelerating, and it proceeded to smash me into the rock harder than I've ever been smashed into something that I recall in my life. And I've broken my skull in a soccer game. So it quite literally felt like a giant picked me up and spiked me like a football. I ended up, I don't even know if I rolled, I just ended up upright in a side surf for all of maybe 3 seconds, where I could see the most unholy amount of water coming down. I might have well been at the bottom of Niagara Falls as far as I was concerned, and I proceeded to get window shaded after that so hard that it literally ripped me out of the boat. And Luckily, one of the paddlers, the one Tom knew, which is why he left me with that group, because at that time in my paddling career, I was not the type to go paddle with 3 people I just met at the put-in by myself, other than Tom was making me do it and said it'd be good for me. And it turned out it was. But the swim was brutal. I was not even halfway through Mile Long Rapid, which is actually appropriately named, and it is about a mile long, and it is a big, giant Class 5 rapid. And it was a very long swim. I got injured during the window shade against the rock. I was breathing weird for several days after that. I actually went to the doctor and found out I had a condition called costochondritis, which is when your cartilage separates from your lungs, which is why the breathing was painful. So anyway, that one shook me a lot. The rock, real quick, that came from, I really wish I could remember his name, because he still lives in Fayetteville, and I'm sure Clint knows him. But I was given a rock, which is a common tradition from the river for the swim, to remember it by. And he just so happened to pick a fairly large rock. It's about the size of a softball, but I've transferred it from 3 different vehicles in dealership parking lots where they're like, I actually almost forgot, with not this most recent truck, but 2 vehicles ago, and I ran back, and I was like, I forgot something. He's like, oh, what is it? And I'm like, it's this rock.
It's a rock.
And he saw me grab a rock, and it's not like a colorful rock, it's just a big gray rock. And he's like, because that big ass rock that creates the hole that you just got absolutely worked in. And I ran into him the next year at Golly Fest, and the guy who gave me the rock, and not only told him I still had the rock, but he was thrilled to see I was still paddling. And I just remember he was like, that's the kind of swim people quit over. And it absolutely put a whole new fear in me, and it did not help my mental game at all, because I was feeling real good prior to that. But that one definitely messed with me mentally, because I wasn't real sure I was going to get out of that at one point. I aspirated a lot of water as well. I was absolutely puking up, coughing up water after that. So that one was definitely the other real brutal swim that I've had. So it took a long, long time, and Clint can attest to it better than anyone, for me to learn to deal with fear. And a lot of my fear actually didn't come from the rapids necessarily. It came from performance in front of other people. I was self-critical and would really get down on myself for messing up in front of people I respected, and people that could do things that I just couldn't seem to grasp, or I'd be able to do it in flat water, but anytime it happened in a rapid, it just wasn't working out for me. And it was extremely frustrating at times, but I was very fortunate to have people like Clint and Tom in particular that were Class 5 paddlers that were very, very patient with me for a long period of time, and at the same time accelerated my path through things faster than would have ever happened otherwise. So in that same respect, Clint himself wrote in, and this is very true in my opinion, that fear is normal and natural. The river's a big, scary place. I still get nervous paddling before any river. It's a sign of a healthy respect and understanding for what you're doing. Overcoming that fear is part of what makes it rewarding, and that's, I agree, 100% spot on, and very much in line with both what Ed shared and what I said too.
Saying that fear goes away is just not true. Everybody deals with it, and if you're not at least some level if you're not at least on some level a little bit nervous for any run, then you're not doing something right. So something's not clicking.
Stephanie gave us a good idea, and I agree with it. I'm gonna tie Clint's other message into it, but we need to end on a happy story,
Yes.
even though it is Thanksgiving and it's supposed to be scary, Stephanie. But
Halloween.
so the first happy part of this is both of us overcame all these various scary situations, and also just had games over the years, and even now. I mean, one thing you guys might find a funny story is I'm often nervous before lessons. Like, I'm thinking about it the whole drive from base all the way to Kelly's, coming from Central Kentucky, like thinking about who I'm going to work with what on, and how I can do better at helping people overcome whatever they're asking me about. And it's a different kind of, it's not fear outright, but it is a social intimidation factor, really, where it's also a question of self-value or self-worth. Like, should I really be teaching anyone? Who am I to teach anyone? I remember getting absolutely throttled. Like, and the lesson is, like Ed and Clint both said, it's part of this sport, and part of what makes it so fun is it's not all that easy to do. Even just paddling a decked boat on flat water we've taken multiple friends, or I've taken multiple friends on like the Little Miami, like in flat water, just to sit in a kayak, and I mean, at least like 60% of them just flip over almost immediately, like in 8 inches of water. No reason, they just do. Which is always kind of funny, but so before we think of a happy story too, Clint had mentioned something about the back deck roll, which, since Stephanie touched on that at the beginning of this, we'll kind of tie it up with it a little bit too, but that the back deck roll is essential for learning both air screws and also for kick flips, which if you don't know, an air screw is when you initiate a back deck roll style trick on a wave, that you go from being on your hull surfing in a front surf, you do a back deck roll style initiation and land back on your hull. So you do a full barrel roll. And then a kick flip is the same thing off the top of a wave. And it's a very, very similar motion to the back deck roll too. You can just do a back deck roll, but you usually do end up in the water. If you angle it a little differently, you can land it without getting your head in the water, and you're a little more vertical on your kick flips. But we will get further into kick flips, but he's 100% right. You have to learn how to back deck roll, or you might as well, because it's a whole lot easier to learn a back deck roll in flat water than it is to learn to throw a kick flip or to do an air screw while surfing a wave, just to learn the motion. Super easy.
Sure. I guess my happy note would be that there is fear in kayaking, yes, but there is also joy. I think that I don't think I've ever gotten off a river where, even if I've had, well, that's not true. Since I've gotten back into kayaking, I've never gotten off a river and was like, oh man, that was terrible, I should have stayed home, you know. I've never experienced that. There's just such a feeling for me of euphoria and just pure bliss that I think is very hard to find anywhere else. For me, it's one of the last places that you can truly get in contact with nature in just like a pure, unadulterated way. And it's awesome and it's amazing. And kayaking is a sport that I love and hope to do forever.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100% and feel the same way. It's interesting, but for me, kayaking is one of the few things that slows me down. I'm sure those of you who know me know I can be a little ADHD, but it's not a bad thing. But I feel most at peace kayaking. It gives me enough to. It's just everything, the water, the air, the scenery, the experience, the thrill of what you're doing, just having fun playing, working with the water. And I'm not thinking about anything annoying or boring, nor am I worrying about things unnecessarily. I'm just kind of thinking about whatever I need to be thinking about. I'm just paddling. And I just really, truly enjoyed doing it. And I think the happiest thing about it all really is the community of paddlers, whether they're rafters, river boarders, sup guys or girls, kayakers, it doesn't matter. I think out of all the sport communities I've been involved in, from, like surfing and soccer and basketball, even weird things like briefly getting into skydiving, obviously when I did hang gliding, but there's even when I did initial pilot lessons, like the crew of people around the whitewater scene is just some of the best people I've ever known and ever met, and like 98% of them I'm like best friends with, even if I just met them like maybe 15 minutes earlier.
It's really hard to get on the river with Jeremy sometimes.
That's true.
It's because he's talking to everybody at the foot end.
Yeah. I do have a bad tendency of doing that, but I always have someone to paddle with, and I always have shuttle. So, but yeah, I love that about it, and I think that's the best thing about the sport is that everybody, for the most part, really cares about everybody else out there too. And not only are they just great people, most people out there are more than capable of and willing to help out should you be in a bad situation.
For sure.
So it's a wonderful community, and I'm really happy to be a part of it. And it's been one of the best things in my life. I'm very thankful for those who got me into it, helped me get into it.
Absolutely. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and do our last little bits of announcements. January 24th, there's a gear swap at Mad Tree Brewery.
I've got some good stuff at that before. Don't sleep on it. There's lots of Ohio boaters.
Yeah, it's not a purely kayaking gear swap, but there's a ton of stuff there. People do sell kayaks. It's like an all outdoors thing. Mountain bikes I've seen there. Last year we found Farmer John wetsuits for like $10 a pop, so it's a really, really good deal. It's a lot of fun.
The fleece I still wear the most to this day was from there.
Yeah.
I randomly went just because I was meeting Dorfman to get a paddle.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think it was $12.
Yeah.
And it was like a $300 North Face fleece. But
It's a lot of fun.
I've been wearing for like 8 years.
Whitewater Warehouse brings a bunch of their used stuff down. It's a really just great experience.
That's where that lightning paddle Rahul uses came from. Same thing. Bernie wouldn't let me leave without selling it to him. He just kept dropping. He just kept dropping the price.
Yeah, that sounds like Bernie.
Yeah.
There will be a swift water rescue course April 18th through the 19th. That will be at Whitewater Warehouse in Dayton. Eric is running that. There was a comment on one of the posts about it. Was this be ACA certified? Eric and I are planning on doing an ACA certification before this session, so if you're worried about us not being completely certified to teach, we will be after this. And then there is a date for the Cuyahoga Falls Fest this year. It's the weekend of April 25th. It's a ton of fun. Normally there is a deal on hotel rooms for paddlers. I don't really know how much it is. Last year I kind of bummed my way into a room, but it was fine. But that is April 25th. Even if you're not going to paddle,
I'll be there.
it's a ton of fun. It was a weird year last year because it rained out, but even just watching the experienced paddlers paddle, it was like, wow, that is a lot of fun. And then there's also some unique whitewater up there. So I ran Tinker's Creek the next day, which was still a ton of fun.
Oh, if you want a good Halloween story, ask Eric about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Eric, I had to.
Or Nicole, she probably had the worst.
Yeah, I
end
think
of that
actually
stick.
she does.
There was a dry box hidden at the Wednesday morning attainment put in at Riverside Park that has been claimed.
Good job.
Good job. I forget who. I should have grabbed their name before I.
Whoever it was, I hope you don't have poison ivy.
Yeah.
Eric and I had about a 5-month.
Yeah.
Poison
something
ivy
like that. And
issue.
then there is still 3 free things at Whitewater Warehouse. So if you go buy something, it's free with the purchase. So if you go buy something, they will give you something from Eric.
Dayton folks, remember they sell carabiners for
Yes.
like $8,
And then
whatever Eric stuck in those packages is worth like at least $8. So,
our last thing worth mentioning tonight is the Strava challenges. This is going to be a good weekend to go set some speed because we'll have some water. So if you're,
who's number 1 on those?
I think I don't know.
I think it's a name I recognize.
Yeah.
I was done in the full slice too, by the way.
But the time leader of that section will get a cash prize on the race day, which is February 2nd this year. So if you go out and you set a time record, I think he's doing male and female. Don't put me on the spot, but Eric is deciding those prizes. So yeah, I think that's everything. If you guys, I really appreciate everyone who stuck around. Go ahead,
thank you so much.
like the live stream. It'll be the same time next week, 8 o'clock. It will be on YouTube again. I think this worked much better once we got it figured out.
Yeah, this is so much better.
Yeah. So thank you guys for hanging out. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the river.
Thank you.